Hi, it's Cedric here, and today I'm with Ash Sweeting from BioTracker. So, tell us about BioTracker.
BioTracker is, firstly, thanks for having me here, Cedric, greatly appreciate it. BioTracker is a pet wearable and data company. We have got one device that we've got in the market at the moment, but our bigger vision is to develop an ecosystem, if I want to overuse that term, of technologies that monitor and inform animal behaviour, and then link that into a sort of a data and AI engine to provide better outcomes for pets, for owners and for veterinarians.
Okay, interesting. So we've got some questions that we'll go through. So over the last decade, technology's changed hugely with the way people interact with each other and with their pets and with their vets. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's we're at the beginning of bigger changes that are going to happen already very recently available. There's an increasing numbers of technologies or wearables you can get for your pets. They're anything from a simple Fitbit type device that will track your animals or your dog's activity levels to a device you can link into your Wi-Fi lab at home, and you can actually watch your dog, or you can flick treats to your dog, but monitor and interact with your dog while you're away. Our device is a GPS tracking device, so if your dog escapes, it will help you find that dog. And will also give you the assurance that your dog is actually home when it's meant to be at home. Okay. And then there's a growing number of technologies being developed. As more and more sensor technologies become available, become developed, then the range of what is possible is going to grow. And then, I guess, ways to better manage your pet. So at the moment, in terms of feeding, obesity is one of the biggest issues we have with dogs and with pets in general. But people still do the eyeballing it in terms of nutrition, how much they give their dogs. So if you have a way of actually managing that better, so you're actually providing what they need. And then as things become more sophisticated, you could start looking at their age, you can look at their size, you can look at their activity levels, and then you can adjust nutrition potentially accordingly.
If your dog's not losing weight, and you've got a GPS track and you know that it's not exercising, so that's obviously valuable information.
Yes, yeah, and then that will then link into the interaction with vets. Yeah. That's another whole big area that there's potential that in terms of how it's going to affect a vet's business, but giving vets insight into what that animal's doing, how it's performing, so they can actually provide additional advice going forward as the dog, the pet needs that, rather than waiting until it's the annual checkup time or the actual animal is sick enough to schedule a visit.
Okay, I hadn't actually thought that through, so that makes a lot of sense that you can see in inverted commas issues with the pet before they become overt because you're tracking it more accurately.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the areas that I'm very excited about. Okay. I think another big disease, which is osteoarthritis. If I hurt my knee or you hurt your knee or whatever, you feel that you go and talk to it. You ring up a doctor, you will make those earlier inquiries. But pets, they can't talk, and it's only once the injury gets to the stage where the owner goes, wow, that dog's got a significant limp, that they take them to the vet. By that time, there's been greater damage done. It becomes more expensive to intervene. It could go all the way back to numerous years prior with overweight, putting more obesity, putting more stress on the joints. So by moving the touch point for intervention and having more touch points along the way for intervention, you can fine-tune the outcomes more accurately and to better results. And that works for everyone. It works for the vet, works for the dog, and it works for the owner.
Interesting. And so I guess the next question I had was, where do you see BioTracker fitting into this? But I think we've already gone through that.
Largely, I think the The area I'm most interested in is the big data and AI, and how you actually choose or work with other partners or with other people to gather that data to provide the insights that vets and owners need to provide those better outcomes. And then that's part of what we're doing going forward. Is we'll be looking at, we're not going to be able to do everything ourselves, so partnering with technology or hardware suppliers, as well as working with universities, veterinarians, and other people, research organisations, to actually have the data that we need to link all that together.
Okay, interesting. And the next question, I think you've answered as well, but I'll ask it as a question. How do you see the products that you're developing changing the way animal disease is diagnosed and treated?
I think we've covered that. It's a matter of finding things out as early as possible. I think if you look at the medical industry, I think there's a lot of the same challenges going on, or processes going on. And this is probably alluding to another question later on, but so excuse me. By moving to a more of a preventative, proactive treatment, that's not necessarily going to completely align with current business models that the medical industry or the veterinary industry work with. You know, the patient, the dog, or the person gets sick, they call up their doctor, and then they come to them. Whereas if you're identifying things before they happen, and it might be from the big data perspective, I think there's some really interesting opportunities where you can, have kind of pattern analysis going on, where a certain series of patterns or behaviours or activities over time might lead to a disease 2 or 3 years down the track, and you're doing that over hundreds of thousands of people or animals. That means you're going to try and get indicators for disease maybe years before they happen. Especially if you link genomics in there, that actually will strengthen that. But that means that the medical provider, be that a vet or a doctor, then will have to go out to the patient and identify them that there are these potential disease path. But that's much earlier than the person ever gets sick, which is a great outcome for the person, but it's just changing the business model.
Or the patient, the dog.
Or the dog, exactly.
A lot of vets I talk to at conferences and whatnot, they're actually scared of technology. Not scared of technology, that's wrong. Probably the people watching this aren't, but they're worried that things like they're worried about telemedicine, let's put it that way, and this would interface with that from their perspective, and clients can make their own diagnosis through things like this. And apps, and then go online and talk to Dr. Google and find a way of fixing it. So that's one of the issues I see, that I hear about all the time already. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I can understand and definitely see the reason for those concerns. I think it's the way technology has changed over the last 10 years. It's changing at a pace and volume that's impossible to resist. Try getting by without a smartphone these days, or a mobile phone these days, as much as you might like the invasiveness as a concept. It's a challenge to interact in, I can't go and pay for parking without a phone. There's a whole bunch of things you can't do. So it's a matter of, from my perspective, it's a matter of how do I be at the front of the wave and make the most and adapt and capitalise on this opportunity, and look at the opportunities it's providing to my business and to my clients and their animals, rather than being scared of it.
I agree 100%, and the biggest generation of pet owners coming through now, or the biggest group of pet owners coming through, the millennials. They are now the biggest pet owners after the baby boomers, and they're going to love this stuff, and they're going to use it whether the vets want them to or not. So it's better to be at the forefront and help lead the charge, I guess, and help them identify and use these technologies.
Oh, completely. And those pet owners will want to engage with a vet in a much more of a millennial type of a way than a baby boomer type of way. So to keep their clients engaged.
Cool.
And there's great opportunities in terms of the outcomes for the animals and animal welfare and well-being and longevity. So I think there is value in that.
I agree. What have the challenges been in getting the technology and whatnot to where it is now?
And the challenges have been, I guess there's the challenges on the technology side. Our device is a wearable, so it's small. It goes on the collar.
It is wearable.
It's a collar mounted GPS
I was going to ask you
tracker.
about that. Yeah.
And with something that's small, it needs to be small. It needs to be light. And no one likes charging their batteries, so it needs to be accurate, and it also needs to have as long a battery life as possible. So that's a constant juggling act between all of those factors. We can make the battery last a lot longer, but then it's going to be bigger and heavier, and possibly potentially more expensive. So it's a matter of juggling those different requirements to get the best outcome. And then it's also how do we engage, or what do pet owners want? And from our research and discussions, when you speak to people within the industry, the nutrition companies, and a lot of the vets, they're really interested in the activity levels of dogs and their amount of exercise and I guess the longer term view. But most pet owners are more interested in just knowing that their pet's safe and well and happy today. So how do you balance and provide what's good for pet owners, what's good for the industry and the veterinarians, and then present that in a way that's engaging, that's fun to use to keep people engaged.
So roughly how long does the battery last?
Up to about 10 days. So it's up to 10 days. But if you want to have updates more frequently, it's gonna last fewer days.
And it's obviously a rechargeable.
It's a rechargeable battery.
Fit in a.
It goes into a USB.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you plug a USB in. It's got a contact rather than a plug recharger.
Yeah.
And that means that it's waterproof because there's a few dogs out and about. The last thing you want is your dog jumping the river and it's gonna be the beach or the ocean or whatever and damage it. So it's waterproof and the charging device is waterproof, but it's a USB.
Okay, cool. What are the challenges ahead?
I think we've covered the issues around the challenges ahead already in a way, but it's one. Developing that core or quorum of data so you can actually start running AI engines of various sorts over that. There was a great study done by a mob called Vet Compass out of the UK published in the last month or two, where they identified that the life expectancy for chocolate labs was about 2 years shorter than the gold and the black labs.
Yes.
And it's those things that you don't know that the data is going to provide. And it's once you identify a problem, then you can actually look at how you can maybe solve that. And then you can actually look at the next level up. Whereas if you look at life expectancy, which is very easy to measure, but then what's the actual welfare or health aspects? And is it the fact that chocolate labs get a little bit sick and die quickly and the other ones live the last 2 years, even though it's longer, are not necessarily better? So you don't necessarily have apples with apples all the time. So I think one of the challenges is going to be identifying where those issues is. And as well on that front, people have always expected that breed is such a key determinant of outcome. But could it be something else? Could it be the socioeconomic status of the owners? Could it be the climate they live in? I don't know, but it's going to be identifying that. And I think another big challenge is that no single organisation, university, will be able to do all of this together. It's going to need cooperation from veterinarians, from owners, plus research organisation, plus companies like ourselves. And so then how do you develop those relationships and partnerships to develop value for everyone within it?
And that sort of leads on to the next question, which I guess we've touched on already to a degree, but how do you see, or do you see, this affecting the veterinary business model, put it that way, or veterinary business?
I think technology will affect the veterinary businesses. One, how they share, because that Vet Compass study was done through veterinarians making their data available to a research organisation that then could determine those things. So that's a very simple effect. But then, technology will affect the veterinary business in terms of the move to a telemedicine or a much more proactive type of healthcare. There are essentially sort of intensive care type monitoring units that would be wearables that are starting to be developed. So instead of having a dog stay in surgery to be monitored for a day or two, then the dog could then go home and be monitored remotely.
Yeah.
I think another area that I'm very interested in is heart rate monitoring.
Yes.
And the bits and pieces I've read and studies in humans, etc., the heart rate monitoring will show that it's a great predictor of a lot of different things. However, with dogs and with cats, they don't sweat, so you can't use ECG because there's no electrical conductivity, and they've got fur. And the other common way of monitoring heart rate is through infrared. So there's no sensor out there at the moment for that. So if something like that becomes available, then that will then be able to provide a lot of additional data and information on how an animal's functioning and its health status.
Interesting. Okay. What do you see as the greatest advantages of these wearables for pet owners?
I think it can change the way that people interact with their pets on a daily basis, rather than just leave them at home and then you come back and whatever's happened. People can keep more engaged with their pets during the day. They can, there's the potential with a combination of automatic feeding devices and monitoring devices that if you wanted to say go away for a couple of days and you couldn't before because you had the dog, you could then leave them at home knowing that they would have everything they need during that time. I think if we can provide as an industry better health and well-being for pets and keep them actually in prime condition for longer, not just make them live longer, that's great for the relationship between the pet owner and the pets. And I think also one of the big things is by moving, because often from a financial perspective, a lot of the when you face orthopedic disease, you wait too long to take them in, you then have to have very expensive surgery and it's very costly, and by having earlier, more preventative care, you'll hopefully have much better managed health costs. So you won't get those big shocks that suddenly you have to fork out huge amounts of money for your dog because you actually have managed their health all the way through much more precisely.
I already see clients of mine who have cameras at home and monitor their pet via their phone and various apps and all that sort of stuff. Typically with dogs that are badly behaved, but some of them just like looking in on their pets just during the day for normal pets.
Well, one of the things, I have no idea how on earth you'd solve this, but one of the things I'm excited about from a behavioural perspective, and I can see how if you could hire a data scientist to do that, but you can't hire a data scientist for every single owner. But if you could create essentially individual algorithms for certain pet behaviours. So if a certain pet did a certain thing, how would you create a personalised solution for that owner? As I said, I don't have that solution yet, but I think being able to provide that level of engagement into the way the data works would be very exciting.
Okay, cool. Yeah, interesting. You've already mentioned that you're working with other people or organisations to turn this into reality. Anything else to add to that?
Not much above what I've already said. It's researchers, universities, potentially other hardware providers, and as we move forward, become more involved and working more with veterinarians.
And these wearables are already available now, so people can buy
Yeah,
them.
they're ready available either through our website. They're in JB Hi-Fi and they're also in Harvey Norman.
Okay, cool, interesting.
Yeah.
And last question, what are your thoughts on, and again, I think you've alluded to this already, so what are your thoughts on the future as technology continues to advance?
I think as more sensors become available, there's starting to be sensors that could potentially analyse breath or sweat or something like that. So then as a dog goes to eat or drink in the bowl, the obvious things are things like ketones, etc. But other compounds that may be in their sweat or their breath. There's a startup who's actually working in the cattle industry who's developing a subcutaneous implantable wearable device. For cattle.
For purpose?
The purpose is health and production monitoring, but going under the skin. So there's smart tags for cattle that do heat detection, that do nutrition, and all those kinds of things, and it's just putting it under the skin. So in the jaw, you can actually look at the chewing behaviour, the rumination, the grazing behaviour. Because it's under the skin, you've got heart rate is easy. There's potential to maybe even get things like blood pressure.
Wow.
So, I think there's a big psychological hurdle to actually put something like a device under the skin like that. But then you think about it from the other side is that, most animals have microchips. So they actually already have a device under their skin.
That question's been going through my head since we started, and I was tossing up whether to ask you or not, but what's the chances of this turning into being part of a microchip or something like that?
If you speak to these guys, they're very much pushing for that. My thoughts are that it'll probably happen. It's a matter of when rather than if.
And battery life, that's the reason I sort of went off the question. I thought, battery life.
This company they think they can get 3 years battery life out of the device.
Okay.
So they're aiming at the beef cattle market. And so most of your cattle are already gone to market by that stage. So 3 years is sufficient. But whether that's another thing that's evolving is battery technology. So what can be done in that stage over the next 4 or 5 years, I think, is how long's a piece of string question.
Yeah. So two last things. Have you got anything else you want to add that we haven't covered yet?
I think we've basically covered it all.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
And B, any of the vets that are out there that are interested, how do they contact you? And I'll put it on the email as well. So, how do they contact you?
Best via my email, which is ash@biotracker.com.
BIOTRAKA.
Correct.
Okay. It'll be on the newsletter anyway.
So best to reach out by email. Great. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
See you next week.